So I started Why We Make Mistakes, having finished the book Behave. Behave was written in 2018. This was written in 2009, so I don't even know whether I'm going to read it. And my reasoning for that was, things may have changed. But you know what hasn't fucking changed? And this time made me really upset. So this whole video, by the way, is going to be about Kanye. But I'll explain. Just bear with me a second. So, right-handed people, for instance, tend to turn right when entering a building. What's important is that these effects occur largely outside of our consciousness. We're biased. We just don't know we're biased. And it's just like, oh. And how am I going to change anything? How am I going to be able to convince you guys? I mean, it's not even right to say that we're biased. We are biases. Or we are... I just get really down because we think we're so smart and we think we understand shit. We don't even realize that, our minds are what they are. Being just coded by, sort of haphazardly kind of put together by different survival pressures and so on. It's just, we think we're souls. Anyway, so it gets me super down. I don't know whether I've communicated why it gets me super down, but I mean, it's just imagine being a 21st century person and you're, and you're grow up on a plantation and you're just do you guys not see how wrong this is or something? And except it's even worse because fuck. Because if you were the reason that people weren't seeing that it was wrong, or the reason people weren't seeing that it was wrong is because our brain works the way it does, and we don't realize that it works the way that it does. So when I give you the example of you going back into slavery times, yeah, maybe you'd be disgusted and so on. I wouldn't even be disgusted. I'd be like, yeah, this makes sense. Of course the human brain would just be able to justify this. That's not confusing to me. All the things that we believe now that we're able to justify, it is not confusing to me. But I guess what's terrible is to actually live in this time and to talk to people who talk about humans being rational, or who don't know the first thing about how the mind works. It's fucking crazy. I'm talking to minds that are completely convinced that their mind works in a way that it doesn't, that it's rational, that they're these souls. And and I got so upset when I remembered when I was reading the end of Behave, and he was addressing people who believe in free will, or at least some kind of a mitigated free will. I forgot. And I used to have those conversations in high school, and I was like, how do you think that free will is a thing? And it's just oh my God. And so, and that's, is there any, how did we get to 4 minutes already? I don't even know what the point of talking to you is, which is my point. So, I recorded a bunch of thoughts about Kanye, and some of the thoughts are straight up wrong. Right at the beginning of the video that you're about to see, I misquoted the tweet. And also I was not aware that he had talked more extensively about, Jews controlling stuff. Again, all he did was go and prove it. And also, what's so funny is this Jimmy Kimmel thing with the Ari. Literally, a powerful, influential Jewish guy asked people to boycott Kanye. And it's a problem that Kanye is talking about the influence of Jewish people. Look, Kanye's off his rocker. And he said a lot of really whack stuff. And I'm sure he said a lot of whack stuff about Jews. But, and then there's this comment that, anyway, I'm all over the place. Which brings me to why I'm posting this. You actually shouldn't even be watching this if you're born before like 2200. I was thinking about the future and imagining a time where, that's really bothering me, and imagining a time where we understand, we have some humility and some awareness that, oh, okay, so my brain is basically it's it's a lines of code that say, if you see this, do this. But those rules aren't like actually like very reasonable. For instance, typically when you see a face of another race, your amygdala activates, which is sort of your not just emotion but fear center of the brain. And so that's just part of our programming. And then of course the amygdala, it's a pretty central part of the brain, which then influences, of course, or even produces other activity in the brain. And we don't even like know that. We think, anyway, I mean, I'm not going to try to explain to you right now. I must sound like such a jerk, but, right. So anyway, so the point is that I've been thinking about the future and the past and how people will see us. That's even actually the last chapter of, the Behave book, or one of the last chapters, how people will see us, or it's one of the sections. And something that I think about often, I hate how we were so critical of the past, and then we'll be critical of the present, like of governments and stuff like that, just not critical of ourselves. And one day, I have to believe, one day humans will realize that we are what we are. It'll be common knowledge. We'll have a completely revamped understanding of what a bias is and so on. And I want them to know that I was here. I want you, if you were born in the future, to know that I was fucking here and suffering. I don't understand all the things that you understand. I'm now, of course, talking to you people from hundreds of years from now. I don't get everything. But I just want you to know I was here. And what made me think about that was I was watching a video about Elizabeth something, Escott or something, and Hazel, whatever, the two young girls in the photo, the desegregation school photo. And I was watching a video about their reconnecting a few years after the photo was taken, and Hazel apologizing for her hatred. And in Arkansas, there was a newspaper article talking about this, there was this, in the video, which I guess I'll link in the description, there was a, on the left column, there's this article about like some Negro boys getting beat up or whatever. And it's like, yeah, of course, there were people, even in fucking Arkansas, that were saying, hey, guys, I think we're doing something wrong here. And, you think about abolitionists and so on. So even in a time where everybody thought that, or almost everybody thought that slavery was justified, there were people who were like, hello? And so I want you to know that I was here. That in 2012, I remember I got in an argument with my girlfriend in between 2010 and 2012, where she was saying that I wouldn't want her murderer to necessarily be punished if, for instance, he could be treated. And I was like, look, if I could track him down or whatever, it would give me great satisfaction to kill him probably. But no, I wouldn't let someone else. I would get no satisfaction really from someone else punishing him, especially if he could be treated. Of course, if he could be treated, I mean, I might still get satisfaction from killing him, depending on how aware I am of the possibilities of treatment and how obvious it is and how bad I feel for him and stuff. But and then we at my college we had to try to find a speaker in the neuroscience club. We had to try to find someone to come guest lecture or to come speak. And I learned about this guy David Eagleman, and I was assigned to contact him. And I read this article, and he was talking about neural law, and he was saying all these things that I've been saying, that punishment is stupid, that and he calls it a forward-thinking legal system, where you have a legal system where it's like we just want to try to like make things better, basically. So if we can't treat someone, of course we sequester them, and then if we can treat them, we treat them. Like this whole punishment thing is just such a stupid instinct. I mean, it makes sense. There was useful in the past, but now it's just such a stupid thing. And now in my time, it's fucking crazy. Have you you're from the future. Have you read, do you know how we saw the mind and how we saw things like punishment? Oh, my storage ran out, and it's going to run out again. But the point is that I'm about to spend like an hour and a half talking about Kanye and everything. And it's got like a lot of gibberish, but it's really just to prove to people in the future that I existed. And that I hated being in this time. And then I just started continuing reading, and you know how people say like don't second guess yourself, or people like don't change your answer on a test is like a really common thing. You say it's like a well-known mistake. It's like a well-known trap. You write an answer and then you change it, and usually the first one was correct, is what we say, right? Just complete bullshit. A practical example involves the power of first impressions. Nearly 80 years of research on answer changing shows that most answer changes are from wrong to right, and that most people who change their answers usually improve their test scores. This is page 3. One comprehensive review examined 33 studies of answer changing, and not one were test takers hurt on average by changing their answers. And yet, even after students are told of these results, they still tend to stick with their first answers. Investors, by the way, show the same tendencies when it comes to stocks. Even after learning that their reason for picking a stock might be wrong, they still tended to stick with their initial choice 70% of the time. And just another, before this video runs out, just another practical example. Doctors in surgery, I know there's probably a name for this, or a name for I should get the name for the person who found this, the list or whatever, but fuck it. Or I'll put in the description if I remember. But the doctors, surgeons used to do silly things like leaving a scalpel, or I don't know, just making some mistake, closing up, leaving something in there, or whatever, and then a lot of people would die. And you know what brought that percentage of fatalities down is you have to, when you complete your surgery, you have to fill out a little checklist. Do I have my scalpel? Do I have this? Do I have that? Or whatever. Actually, I have never seen the checklist. I've just heard lots of talk about it. And doctors really didn't want to do it. They're like, that's so stupid. I mean, I don't need a checklist to remind me to get my scalpel. But actually, you fucking do. Not every... Whatever. This book isn't bad. Simply put, most of us aren't wired the way we think we're wired. Most of us, what? But still. But much of the world around us is designed as if we were these reasonable souls. We are asked, for instance, to memorize countless passwords, pins, and usernames. Yet our memory for this type of information is lousy. Yeah, the whole idea of having different passwords for different accounts is the craziest fucking thing to me. When they ask you to do that, what the hell are you talking about? I mean, I've got all kinds of symbols and whatever in my password. And And I have a few different variations that I use over time. Yeah, that's my point. I'm just sad. Oh, and it's not just that I'm like a genius born in the past. And it's also greatly affected me personally, which is of course part of my sadness. Beyond the intellectual frustration, it's also that having ADHD, this whole myth of having a rational mind, is why a lot of professors have been like, either like, I don't know, like, you know, just do it, or oh, everybody has something, or you know, whatever, because it's just not an understanding that of the brain, that. And then, well, if you're from the future, you know what I'm talking about. And then also with my neurodivergence, people assuming that their judgments of behavior are reasonable, and when they get a bad vibe from someone, that it's because the person is bad. That assumption alone is, God, what would my life have been like if at least the people around me, they understood ADHD, and so they were like, oh yeah, it's gonna take you longer to do this assignment, but you need more pressure, and and they were just totally responsive to that, rather than accusing me of cheating or trying to deceive them or whatever. And then the biggest one, if people knew that not to judge or condemn people without evidence, that thinking that someone is bad isn't enough, and that even when you think you have evidence, you have to actually see whether it's real evidence or whether it's just bullshit that your brain has accepted in order to maintain this other thing. It's kind of mind-blowing what my life would have been like, because I mean, it's the reason I'm here in the van, the reason I try to be away from people, spend a lot of time being really confused about who I am, about my morality, because of other people's interpretations. Spent a lot of time arguing about gay marriage when I was a kid. Just like, how do you think that should be illegal? Just not understanding. Spent so much time talking about religion, free will, just such basic things. All that time wasted. If I'd been born in the future, I'd be discussing things that actually like are worth discussing, because like things that aren't already obvious, things that I would be able to work with people, I'd be able to have a team, I wouldn't be running from people, because I need other people. I do need them to tell me when I'm wrong, and also just to work together, but these humans, I can't. So anyway, the point of I don't remember why, I was just thinking about like people in the future, and seeing my videos, and I don't remember what it was now that I was like, oh fuck it, I want that Kanye video to be up there. It wasn't that I wanted them to see that I understood that Kanye was kind of being persecuted, because a lot of people see that, and a lot of people irrationally, they think that he's completely like sane, he's saying great things. No, not that either. But that's another thing I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about sort of getting the wrong people's support from a Kanye video. People who are just like, oh yeah, Jews are the worst. Anyway, but I guess there was something I just wanted you to see. I don't know. My channel is just meant to be a record of my life and my thoughts. It's really more for the record than it is for informing or entertaining you. Alright, so here's something that will neither inform nor entertain, although there are some things that are informative. This Kanye thing is so stupid. How the fuck is this what we're talking about? Right, when I say we, because I watch Kimmel every day to catch up on my news. So insane though. So what did he say about the Jews? The only thing I heard was that he said he was going to talk about the Jews. So he just said the word Jews. Or he said he was going to talk about the Jews. And people have said a lot of bad things about Jews. So, I mean, I get, like, how the reaction happens in the brain. But Jesus Christ, can we reel it in? Oh, my God. Tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. I'm not going to do any more research because it's just going to make me too upset. But as far as I know, all he said was, in the morning, I'm going to talk about the Jews. And then he got deleted on everything. Twitter, everything. Lost a bunch of endorsements. And like day after day, this is what's discussed on Kimmel. There isn't other stuff happening in the world that you can make jokes about? I don't understand. Of course, I do sort of understand. Well, one, I think that the Jewish community is kind of playing us, to be honest with you. It's not malicious. Of course, they have an interest to protect themselves, and they have the power to do it, to make sure that anything that even slightly resembles it by any eye, anti-Semitism, is squashed and that person is ruined. You know, that's pretty cool. And I wish blacks had that power. I wish that, gays, I wish gays had that power. I don't know how I would compare sort of the power. Obviously, the Jews are the most powerful disenfranchised community. They have sort of the most power to shut shit down. Can you imagine if cops were killing unarmed Jews? Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine? Fuck, can you imagine though? I don't want to get canceled before I even get started. I don't mean like, oh, that would be obviously, but that should get shut down so quickly. And props to them. I wish women had a little bit more of that power. They got a lot more power during Me Too, of course, to be able to shut shit down, cancel someone if they do. But of course, people had to do a lot worse than just say, I'm going to talk about women in the morning. They had to do a lot worse. So yeah, women do not have the same power. You know, the group of like Jews does exist, right? Like, things can be said about them, right? I mean, we know that things can be said about, like, wasps. Oh, fuck. And, of course, we should be very careful what we say about them, because you don't want to go down that road again. And again, I don't really think there's... All right, whatever danger might be put... I mean, I feel like there are a lot of other communities that are a lot more at risk. Look, I'm not saying anything bad about Jewish people. Of course, you can't even say that, really, right? That's like saying, I'm not racist, but, or I don't mean to be racist, or this isn't racist, or whatever. You're going to get canceled just for saying that. Well, not actually, but that is actually what happened with Kanye. All he had to say was, I'm going to talk about the Jews. Yes, if you said I've got something I'm going to say about black people tomorrow, yeah, that'd probably get you in some trouble. I'm not sure that it would get you in... I don't know. I don't think that would get you in as much trouble if you said I'm going to say something about women. And then what they're talking about now is... Apparently he said he, like, admired Hitler. So the fuck what? What middle school student, what college student, what person who's edgy and intelligent hasn't said, I mean, I haven't, because it's so, I mean, every lame pseudo-intellectual says it. But like, what daring person hasn't said, oh yeah, There's stuff to, like, Hitler did some, like, impressive things. He got a whole country to do some awful shit that would have been against their better instincts and judgments, but he was able to turn it around and stuff. And I think another reason that I don't say that I don't really commend Hitler is also, no, not just because of the trouble that it would get me into, but it's also because I've learned that actually he was just really a pathetic. It's kind of like Trump. Like, Trump's not doing any of this shit intentionally. Trump has no idea what he's doing. Trump is so sort of just first level. He's not thinking ahead. He's not, yeah. So I don't actually think that Hitler was all that impressive. I don't think that he was some mastermind who was able to figure out how to hack the psychology of a nation. So that's why I don't commend him. But for people who think that he was, and if you just look at the most basic facts, that would be a reasonable conclusion. Oh, wow, you have a country of people who are not genetically, like, predisposed any more than other humans to commit genocide. Of course, humans are genetically kind of predisposed to commit genocide, but Germans aren't any more so than other people. God, Germans are so lucky. When I grew up, I thought Germans were, like, supposed to be bad or whatever. Pretty quickly learned, oh, no, that was just those Germans. And that's, like, amazing that Germans haven't just been shit on by the rest of society for, like, until now. Like, Germans are well respected. Of course, they did a good job of saying, oh, you know, they made it illegal to... Anyway, my point is, that's just another little side point about our judgments of people and in groups, and can you imagine if blacks had committed anyway. So anyway, I just think this is absolutely insane, and so to make this somewhat of a useful video, I can't. I actually just want to. Let's try. I wonder what are the mechanisms that make us so ready to take such pleasure, because we're celebrating each other. We're like, yeah, good. They shut Kanye down. They shut Kanye down. How are we? It just shows how unreasonable we are, I think. Fucking hell. But I don't even know how to convince you, because you people still think that, like... Where are you going? You people still think that a reason... I don't even know what to say to you. I don't even know what to say to you. Don't even know what to say to you. My girlfriend said that her sister was going to be able to look after the younger siblings. And I was like, what do you mean, the younger siblings? 2 of them are 14 years old. What's she got to look after them for? What do you mean the younger siblings? She says to me, oh yeah, I said the younger siblings, so I was talking about the 14-year-olds as well, but that's true, they don't need looking after. So she just has to look after the little one, who sometimes like throw a tantrum and stuff. And I was like, why can't the 14-year-olds look after her? And she says, well, I don't think that they'd be able to handle that. I go, okay. Why don't you think that they would be able to handle that? I don't know her family. I mean, I've met them, and I know she hasn't seen them, spent a lot of time with them in a while, like a year. So it's certainly possible that they would now be able to handle it when they maybe couldn't have. But anyway, I'm just asking. She goes, oh, because if she threw a tantrum, I don't think they'd be able to handle it. Oh, I should have mentioned, she was saying, I don't think they'd be able to handle it, like, if she threw a tantrum. So then I was like, yeah, but why? And she's like, well, because I think that if she, like, threw a tantrum, they wouldn't be able to handle it. That came out of her mouth. And she's not special. This is the woman that I love. We all say bullshit. So there's like no point in even discussing anything with anyone. Because nobody even knows what it means to like actually give a reason for why something might be true. I'm currently working on a taxonomy. I'm not working on a taxonomy. I'm working on the English version. I'm just translating. I'm not even doing that. I mean, I'm just Googling stuff. I'm contributing very little at this point. Neil, come here. Come here. But it's all these fallacious arguments, and nobody. I don't know what to say, because like I'm upset. Let me just try to get a sentence out. When you have a judgment, a thought, a conclusion, that's what you have. You have a conclusion. Your brain tries to answer questions as quickly as it can, and it doesn't try by any means that you've ever learned at school or anything. It doesn't study the question, study the terms of the question, look at what information might be relevant, compare its relevance and so on, or evaluate the relevance, and then take the information that seems relevant and then follow it to whatever its conclusion is. That's not what happens. Basically, you hear the question, and pretty much it just triggers an answer in you by just like, I mean, you won't even believe me, but yeah, you just have an answer. And then when you're asked to, so why do you think that? You're basically guessing. Or you're thinking of, well, why might one think that? Why would it be a good idea to think that? If one were reasonable, why would they think that? And then maybe you'll give some information that you have, which is not information that you had followed to your conclusion, which is information that doesn't even lead to your conclusion, which is information that might not even be true. And you say it with a straight face, like, this is why that's true. And just the fact that we're capable, and not that we're capable, that our default is to, when we explain something, to give something that almost 100% of the time, like 99.999, 100% of the time, would qualify as a fallacious argument. The only way for you to ever give a good argument for why something is true, it's very simple, based on like the reflexive property or the transitive property or something like this. A and B are the same, B and C are the same. Okay, A and C are the same. Okay, now you've given me a good argument. But for anything else, anything that involves any big question, politics, religion, race, whatever, it's impossible. The only way that you'd be able to do it is, if it's extremely simple, transitive property, reflexive property, whatever, identity property, whatever. B is if you got there through empiricism. So basically what you did is you didn't start with the conclusion. Your brain didn't give you an answer immediately. You had the question, and you're a scientist, philosopher, mathematician. Neil, come here. You evaluated Neil, come here. And then you went and acquired data from the world, and then followed that data to conclusion. Now, when you give me an argument, you could probably give me something close to a good argument, because you would just give me the data that you had followed and then the conclusion that it led to. And it might not guarantee the conclusion, but it would be pretty good. But all that we do right now in every conversation that we have, and I promise you this is true, pretty much, I promise you. I mean, this is the conclusion that my brain has. I don't really know whether it's true. I don't really know even why I'm saying this. Every conversation that we have is bullshit. It's rationalization. Every time someone says something is true, you ask, why is that true? First of all, the person's gonna go, I wasn't ready for that. They're not gonna say that out loud, of course. They're not gonna show that. They're not even gonna think that. But you're gonna see that. You're gonna see when they pause and they go, and then they're gonna say something, and it's just like, how does that indicate that the thing is true? How does that at all demonstrate that the thing you just said is true? The taxonomy that I'm working on is literally 1,000 fallacious arguments. Of course, some of them are categories and subcategories and so on. But let's say there's probably, I don't know. I mean, any taxonomy I've looked at has a minimum of 50. This thing has 1,000. I'm going to guess there's probably like 300 individual like subcategory or like sub-items of fallacious arguments. These are 300 things that we have like a tendency to do when trying to to demonstrate the truth of something. And never is it like, oh, well, if you take this piece of information, which we verified, and you take this piece of information, which, and we can discuss it, here's the verification, and then you take this piece of information, and when you see how those three pieces of information relate, it leads to this conclusion. Nobody ever fucking does that, and we act like we are reasonable, we act like we do that, and so anyway, give me an argument in the comments for why Kanye deserves any of this attention, or why the fact that this whole issue has gotten as much attention as it has doesn't show us that we're completely fucked. Or at least that, like, right now, the current condition, that we have some major sort of rewiring, rethinking to do before we can ever be anything near an intelligent species. So what's my argument there? What's my sort of implied argument? Which, according to me, cannot actually be good. Or, valid and sound. My argument is that if a population freaks out and self-congratulates itself for canceling someone who said, I'm going to say something about Jews in the morning, someone who has been shown to say a lot of edgy, crazy things, but has never received this kind of backlash, right? So he has no history of, like, saying terrible, terrible, terrible things, right? That's so crazy. So my argument is that if we can congratulate ourselves for canceling this person to this degree for saying that, then we are not sort of the reasonable moral machines that we think that we are. Of course, that isn't actually sufficient evidence. I'm inclined to think that it is, but that's fallacious. Actually, by definition, it's a reflexive thing, isn't it? It's an identity property. Because if we defined an intelligent group as a group that considers the relevance and truth value of the things that it asserts, I think that clearly, I think it's hard to dispute that what we're seeing now is people that are neither considering the relevance nor truth value of what we're asserting. We're asserting Kanye is bad, deserves to be canceled, whatever. For instance, Kimmel said that Kanye had just his colleague that wanted to keep their name secret. He wanted to remain anonymous because they didn't want retribution from Kanye, because it was confidential what they were sharing. They had shared that Kanye admires Hitler. Who the fuck hasn't said that? I mean, lots of people haven't. But also lots of people fucking have. And it is not a problem. There is reason, even if not sufficient reason. It is understandable why someone might say, oh wow, he must have been a good leader. And then an edgy artist, Hitler, that does so much to us when we hear that. Of course an edgy artist might think about naming an album that. And that was another thing they got upset about. You want to name an album after Hitler. That's not naming him after Hitler. It's not naming it after Hitler. Yeah, it is. It's using Hitler's name to name the album. But it's not naming it after him, like in his honor, to support him or something. It's using the power of his name to get a reaction, which is kind of what art is. Alright, so third thing, tell me how the problem with where my sort of argument is, or my implied argument or whatever. Okay, thanks guys. So I continued these, so this is like a couple hours later. I continued, so I didn't post it immediately because it's like 20, however long the video has been so far. And I continued watching Jimmy Kimmel. And he kept talking about these comments that Kanye has made. And they did the same thing with Trump. people often, I mean, it's even worse now with Kanye, but with Trump, people would always talk about the things that he had said, but never really, but not, I mean, not never. But it would be difficult to justify it with actual like quotes. And also a lot of those quotes would be like, but you could interpret that another way. Trump's a dickhead, but anyway. So I continued watching it, and so I really doubted myself. I thought, oh my goodness, thank goodness I didn't publish that video. I would have looked like a real idiot, because apparently he said some disgusting, terrible things. So I Google it, I look on YouTube. What did Kanye say? That's literally, that's what I was planning to type anyway, but I typed what did, and apparently other people are asking the same question. And I watched 2 videos, only a few minutes each. That's the length, those are the lengths of the videos. And I still don't know what he said. And that should be something that's important. That's something noteworthy. The fact that we talk so much about, and it happened all the time with Trump, but I wasn't as interested in defending Trump. I'm not particularly interested in defending Kanye, but this just seems like such an obscene example of what I'm talking about. But with Trump, it would happen all the time that we would talk about, with all kinds of people, talk about how awful they are, and like vaguely refer to the reason that we're calling them awful. But like, why isn't the focus on like what they said? Why aren't we saying over and over again, oh, like this person's awful, they said this. I heard about how disgusting it was, how awful it was. I heard when you say DEFCON, this is the only thing I heard about what he said. When you say DEFCON 3 to the Jews, you know. That was a representative of the Anti-Defamation League. I think that's something like what he said. I'll put in a quote to not be hypocritical. Not be a hypocrite. But it's insane. So he said 2 things. He said he could say something anti-Semitic, and Adidas wouldn't drop him. And he said that in the morning, he was going to go hard on the Jews. What the fuck? And then people talk about, oh, and the horrible consequences. Okay, I mock it. There is some truth, some value to that, I think. Which is that, of course, yes. If for instance, I don't know, if Trump says, oh man, these blacks, if he tweeted these blacks, there should be a response to that. There would not be this response though. It would not be as quick. It would not be like as, oh, it's so crazy. Then again, I guess Trump doesn't have a lot of endorsement deals that could get canceled. But I promise you, I'm so sure there's a difference. Maybe I can't really, maybe that's not right. And any argument I give would probably be fallacious, because I don't even know where that's really. But I think you agree with that. I mean, if Trump said these blacks, that would be problematic, because then that does encourage people who support him and have a problem with blacks to interpret it a certain way and then to act on that. And so, yes, he should be criticized. And that's another thing that bothers me. We're talking so much about the reaction of what Kanye said. What about having like a real conversation about the danger of what he said? What about actually saying, and even in this video, sort of the dangers of what he said, it was quite vague. There was an attack in Pittsburgh. Let's get into like more detail about the relationship between a famous person saying something vaguely negative, or that could be interpreted as negative, and then how that, it's insane. I actually don't really have the words for it, so it probably wasn't a worthwhile addition, but yeah, so I am going to post this because I did look for what he had said, and I have no idea. I guess he just said, I'm about to go off on these Jews tomorrow morning. And he's done now. I don't know for how long. But if he keeps his mouth shut, maybe he'll go away in a year. Not really go away, though. He's not going to be... I think this is permanent damage. It's so crazy. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. It's so insane. Let me not be a hypocrite. Why is it so insane to me? What's insane to me is that a person said something that mildly ruffled me, and now the reaction is spoken about as though it's so obvious and so necessary and it's so huge and it's so disproportionate relative to how much the comment might have ruffled me, or the potential consequences of this comment, and especially that I don't think it was irreparable. Like, if people like freaked out over for a couple of weeks, like, what the hell? Kanye needs to say something. Kanye needs to say, you know, Jewish people do not deserve violence and blah blah. Now, if that had been the reaction, Kanye needs to, you know, the next morning, you know, we need to see what he has to say. We need to also maybe we can make sure he doesn't say it. I guess maybe we can suspend his account. But then we need to request a statement from him for explanation and so on. And then if he was like, what? No, like, Jews suck. Like, they're a scourge. Is that how you pronounce it? On this country. Okay. Now we're talking. Okay. Dismiss that. And then we should spend a lot of time in the media talking about how, you know, blah, blah, we shouldn't do that to people and so on. We shouldn't say that and the dangers of that. Absolutely. Okay. They were just so ready to throw him out. They were so ready to throw him out. I have no real thoughts about the Jews. I mean, about the elite Jews. My only personal thoughts is that some of the absolute smartest, and this is a terrible thing to say because it just contributes to the elevation of Jews and Asians and the reduction of other races, which is not a good thing to do. But yeah, in my head, I think of like a lot of smart Jews from like my college who I was like, oh, we can actually have a conversation about some stuff. You know, so I guess it's basically positive. And that's all I got. I mean, I don't even have that really, because I don't even like assume that Jewish people are intelligent. I think Jewish women are beautiful. I like the New York Jewish accent. But obviously, I mean, like, you do, like, it is true statistically, right, that they, like, there's a disproportionate representation in certain powerful industries. Neo, what are you doing? And I also know humans, and humans tend to look out for their own, in a sense. Men in men-dominated, well, in the world, men will cover each other's asses and stuff and support each other, you know. I mean, whites will, you know, WASPs will fucking give each other jobs and whatever. Blacks will do it too if they have the opportunity. When they have the opportunity. So I feel like, yeah, if there's like a group of people that, gosh, it's complicated, but that's I just hate that we can't just, the basis of all this isn't just like what he said, like that's not, I cannot believe he said he's gonna go DEFCON 3 on the Jews. That is a horrible thing to say, blah blah blah. But we're talking about this disgusting behavior and comments. Why are we lying? Why are we saying his comments? Are his comments, 1, I'm gonna go DEFCON 3 on the Jews, and 2, I'm gonna I could say something anti-Semitic? That's not a comment about the Jews, the second one. You see that, right? That's a comment about sort of the relationship that you have with Adidas or something like that. Oh, fucking hell. And what I hate is that I end up having to sort of agree with a lot of, I'm out here saying Kanye is right about the Jews. I don't know what Kanye was gonna say about the Jews. But I do think that it's absurd what is happening. Oh, in the Anti-Defamation League, he had the nerve to say that people are reacting more, and also like that makes the point, because so he's saying that like people are reacting more strongly to other people's to insults about blacks or about whoever, about gays, trans, whatever. That people are much more reactive in those kinds of situations, and we don't really care apparently when it happens to Jews, which is so crazy because look at what's happening. But maybe he's right. Maybe this is like only the companies and the media that are reacting like this to Kanye, whereas the people are all like, sorry, what's happening? And if that's the case, and based on the YouTube comments, I might think that that is the case, because I expected to see in the comments like, oh man, this is why, but I mean, there were like a few comments like, oh, he's an idiot, and we shouldn't, that's what you get for supporting an idiot, for everybody buying the music of an idiot, or something like that, I don't know. But a lot of the comments were like, so what did he say? And so if it's true that the people don't really understand what's going on, don't really understand this reaction and the fervor of the reaction, and if we start guessing what Kanye is going to say, Kanye might have proven his point about the Jews. So it's been a few more minutes. And I was starting to have doubts. And I was thinking, I mean, it's not good to spread like hate or something. Did he fucking spread hate though? But then when I told the story to my girlfriend, who I think she found out who Kanye was this year, when I told her the whole story, of course, it doesn't actually matter from whose perspective it was. I told her the two things that he said. I told her, she knows that he's very famous. And I told her the two things that he said. That should suffice. And she was shocked. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that, because I don't want her I don't mind getting canceled. I don't want her to get canceled. So please, come on. You can't cancel for that. Maybe I didn't really tell the story right. But I really start to get worked up about the Jews. I don't know what Kanye was gonna say. It's not something that I would have thought or would have said. and I have heard people say things like, oh my gosh, they own everything, they run everything. Well, but I've heard like one person say that. I was like, oh my god, I didn't know it. I didn't know that was a thing that people thought. But he didn't even need to say it. Supposing that he was going to say that Jews form like a big cabal that run the banks and the media or something. They have a whole bunch of influence. This woman that I know had once said to me, oh yeah, well, they complain about everything, and even though they have like everything going for them. Which I don't know that I would feel comfortable saying. I guess I felt sort of comfortable repeating, but you can see the big grin on my face. And of course, that's another thing. That would get like twisted, right? He's laughing, he's smiling while he's saying this. I'm obviously uncomfortable. I'm also in shock. So some of my laughing is like, it's like shock. It's like, oh, this is all so crazy. But then right now it's kind of a discomfort. Because I wouldn't, I think that Jews have a right to complain about, whatever. But it isn't the fucking Jews getting shot unarmed by the police. It isn't the fucking Jews getting beat up outside of bars you know, in London or anywhere, like trans people. It isn't fucking Jews who aren't allowed to get married. Jews are doing well enough that they can decide, I'm gonna move across the Atlantic Ocean, grab me some of that land from the Arabs, and have a nice, beautiful house with other people who are in this shitty situation, who are victims like me. Like, I get wanting to move to Israel if you're Jewish, wanting to, you know, form that community, wanting to make sure never again the Holocaust, all that. Can you imagine if blacks could do that? If they had a Wakanda? If we could just say, fuck it. We would actually, like, if we had that sort of... Blacks don't have bar mitzvahs where kids are receiving thousands and thousands of dollars at 13 years old. Jews know damn well they're doing... I'm not going to say they're doing fine, because I know their anti-Semitism does exist, and it is bad. But is it as bad as some of this other stuff? And so I don't know what Kanye was going to say. But if he was going to say, Jews freak out at the slightest hint of a threat and have the power to destroy people associated with that slightest hint, I would have probably thought, do they? I've heard people say stuff like that, but right now I think the hottest, the easiest, the group that's not like doing the best or has the highest status or whatever, but the group that has the most access to like canceling, I would have thought would be straight white women. But I would have been wrong. I would have been very, very wrong. And Kanye would have been very right if, and fuck, I gotta say it so you don't edit it, if what he was gonna say is that there's power and influence there. Kanye didn't need to say it. All he did was prove it. And the way that Anti-Defamation League was talking about how, like, other people are, like, more protected. It may be true that if you, like, say, I hate, fucking serious. If you said I'm gonna go DEFCON 3, but of course that shouldn't matter that he, like, misspelled it. I shouldn't be acting like it doesn't count because people understood what he meant, and I know what he meant. If you said I'm gonna go DEFCON 3 on the blacks, and I'm gonna go DEFCON 3 on the Jews, I think the reaction would have been, but I can just hear people going, is that like a joke? Or like, what's he gonna say? Nobody gave a shit when it was the Jews. And even if, because it's very hot to be anti-racist and anti-homophobic and anti-sexist or rapist, really. It's not even particularly hot to be anti-sexist. It's very hot to be anti-rapist, which it's a start. Also, we're so bad at judging what is sexist and what is racist that we let a whole bunch of stuff slide that has much worse consequences. But as long as you don't, all you have to do is use the word blacks, use the word, you say fags or something. I don't know whether you could hear me, but you say that. Okay, maybe it's true that there's like less sympathy or less quickness from the public to protect the Jews. That may be true. And if that's what the anti-defamation guy was saying, okay. But who gives a shit? Like, the things of consequence, the Jews aren't the ones that are dealing with that. Does anyone want to talk about the fucking Palestinians there, by the way? Fuck. I had nothing. against the Jews before this whole thing. And I still have nothing against the Jews. And because I keep reminding myself that it could have been the blacks, it could have been anybody who's in a position with the recent memory of the Holocaust, the desire to, that's formed a community, and that community has power of influence. Any group would do the same thing. Whites have been, regular whites have been doing it for longer, something, or more prominently in American history or something. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but or I do know what I'm trying to say, but I hope you understand. It's crazy. So yeah, maybe you can get by, but no, apparently not. And then again, nobody's ever in the last 5 years, or nobody's ever in the history of Twitter. So nobody's ever in history used social media, a famous person, to say, I'm going to go DEFCON or whatever, 3 on the blacks in the morning. And maybe the reaction would have been the same. I don't think it could have been worse. It couldn't have been swifter. I wonder whether Kanye's concerned for his security. I don't feel like I would be. But it is true. You say I'm going to go DEFCON 3 on the... Because blacks don't have the same power, the only way to sort of get what we would need would be to go beat the dude up. If he had said, I'm going to go DEFCON 3 on the blacks. Or we could just take it and complain about it on Twitter and nothing really happens. And we continue to get shot by the police and stuff. And maybe I'm just out of touch. I mean, I know that some of the things I stand by that I've said. But maybe some of the things are wrong because I'm out of touch because I don't realize how much anti-Semitism exists. So I'm just thinking about the hiring procedure. You put Jamal Robinson and you put David, what's the fucking Goldberg? But I'm not thinking that there's as many hiring managers that are unconsciously or otherwise going, ugh, David Goldberg. Because the thing is, and this is what I was learning about in the book that I'm reading, Behave. So there's 4, it's 4, okay, so there's an x-axis and a y-axis. The y-axis is how sort of competent, how much you think that a group is. Whatever, blacks, Mexicans, Jews, whatever. So, or even that baseball team, whatever. If you're a baseball team, that other baseball team, whatever. So there's how competent you think they are. And then there's, on the x-axis, there's warmth. And warmth, that basically means, how much you like them. How much, warmth you feel towards them. So, for instance, a homeless person, a homeless drug addict, homeless drug addict who looks dirty and blah blah blah, just whatever the worst scum you can imagine in the street, is going to get rated low in competence, right? In agency. Oh, he can't even take care of himself. And also, which way are you seeing this though? Which way is positive on the x-axis? This is positive for me. Anyway, it would be negative on the x-axis for warmth as well, okay? So from my perspective, it would be here. You would plot them here. Low warmth, low competence. This is the research of, I think it starts with an F or a K, Fisk. Fisk, maybe. I'll put in the description, I think. so you don't really like them, and you think that they're not like comics. That's like really And then the in group, the us, which I call the Noe, is going to be up here. You think that, you know, the people in your group are able to do things like, you know, if the in group out group, if it's like homeless people versus like people who live in homes, yeah. Well, we in homes, I mean, you guys in homes are able to like take care of yourself, support things and blah. And then also we feel warmth towards our people. Like we're able to like connect with them. We don't feel like disgusted by them. There's no immediate activation of the insula when we see them or think of them or think about them. Then you've got groups like I don't know, the homeless guy on your street that I don't know whether you have a homeless guy on your street. I never had a homeless guy on my street. I lived in the suburbs, but the homeless guy somewhere that you've seen often. I never saw a homeless guy often. I don't know, so I don't know what to say to be relatable, but some homeless guy that you know. They're still gonna be low in competence, right? They're homeless. But they might be high in warmth, in which case, rather than feeling disgust, you're going to feel pity. Then, you feel threatened by the last group. And that's where the Jews would fall. A group, or at least that's what I guess. Nobody thinks that, oh, the Jews aren't worth anything, they can't do shit. Nobody's really thinking that. Nobody's thinking, oh, the Jews are so lazy, the Jews are so dumb, whatever. In this day and age, nobody's thinking that. I don't know what people thought 50 years ago. I don't know what people thought 100 years ago. I don't know what people thought 1,000 years ago. But in this day and age, I've never heard anything like that. And I don't believe that really exists in any country that I don't know, Tunisia maybe. But in any country that has any sort of, you know, Neil, where are you going? Where are you going? Stop going over as soon as you see somebody. Chill out. Neil, come here. You know what? I'm gonna actually go with Neo and Neo, come here. I'm gonna go with Neo so he can play with these dogs. But let's just finish up. So the Jews, then there may be low warmth and high competence. So you think they're like able to do shit, and you like respect them in the sense that, you know, you don't think, oh, they're dumb, worthless piece of shit. But there's a lot of still anti-Semitism in the form of not liking them. So then you have like a strong distrust of them. Obviously that's not a great place to be in. I promise you it's better than, All right, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna make this quick. I'm making this whole video. I've just been ranting about the whole Kanye thing. And I also want to give advice to American tourists. So I'm just going to say something briefly about Kanye, and then just make a comment about French people. And I don't know in how many cultures this exists, and maybe I should just be talking about American culture. But anyway, so first of all about Kanye, I don't know what he was going to say. But the more that I think about it, if I had to guess, I think he might have proven it. I think he doesn't have to say it. The second thing is, I'm sorry, just thinking about being canceled. The second thing is that in the U.S., for any of my American viewers, I hope that we are on the same page, that if you say to someone, hi, my name is Eris, then the other person will respond with their name. And I still haven't figured out the hack for here in France. But it's so weird. Like, just now, after I finished recording the video, there were some dogs that Neo had played with the other day. And this woman was walking them with her family, and she had been walking them the other day alone. So I biked over there. And, I said, oh, okay, yeah, I can, working English with the kid, and the guy was like, "Oh yeah, we'll see. School will probably teach him or something like that." And anyway, but we're letting the dogs play together, so we're still like walking together. So I don't see any need for there to be silent. I think this might happen again. So I was like, "Well, my name's Eris." He goes, "Yeah." And you have no idea how many times that's happened to me. And so so now what I do, and this isn't the first time I've done it, is I just asked him, like, do you have a first name as well? And the level of sort of contempt or condescension that I like show depends on, who the status of the person. So if it's like, if it's someone my age, I'll be like, and do you have one? But for this house guy, I was like, oh, okay. No, he goes, yeah. I said, my name's Eris. He goes, yeah. I go, and do you have one? Do you have a first name? And then he tells it to me. I don't get it. Maybe is it like just the US where like introductions like happen? Because in France, you will interact. Because what I'm used to is, but that's true because that's also just between blacks and whites in the US, isn't it? There are fewer Well, actually, I don't. Maybe I'm just being too generally about whites. Just in the environment I grew up, you introduce yourself. You know, once you've said several things for each other, it's like time to introduce yourself. You know, and it's like an awkward thing or like a funny thing when you very gradually were interacting. Like first, oh hey, you dropped that. Oh yeah. Oh hey, I like that. Blah blah blah. And then you find yourselves, wait a minute, I don't even know the person's name. Right? That's like a thing. And I noticed that in France, if you work on a team or if you like join a group or whatever, it's not really a thing. Now, French people, you might say that's a thing, but you have no idea. You're wrong. If you went to the US, you would see that that's what it's like when it's a thing to introduce yourself. And here I guess it's just like less emphasis. And I mean, why shouldn't there be? Like, why does it really matter the first name, right? I don't really need to know this guy's first name. I don't need to be able to yell out to him, "Hey, Jean-Luc, there's a bear running towards you." I don't really need to know his name. And if there's a bear running towards him, I can just say, "Hey, there aren't that many people around." He'll assume I'm talking to him. I don't need to talk to anybody about him. So I don't really need to know his name. So I guess really, it's something that frustrates me enormously about the French. But over the course of the last 3 minutes and 24 seconds, I have realized that I guess it's kind of a silly thing that we Americans do. What's your name and where are you from? By the way, speaking of the Kanye thing, because Kimmel's been talking about the Kanye thing, or just talking about, just celebrating how this guy's life is over or whatever. And one thing that I noticed is that he was doing these interviews in the street. There was one of his crew members, and then he would be talking to them though from his studio, and he asked, and every contestant he would ask, "What's your name? Where are you from?" And so I was thinking about how we do definitely do that, and I've noticed that before. But what was funny is that the guy said Mexico, and you're not going to really get this if you're not American. The guy said Mexico, and Jimmy Kimmel responds, "Oh, okay. Oh, you live there?" Because being in LA, he's so used to that, like, there are lots of people from Mexico in LA. They don't live there anymore. They came from there, and now they live in the US. They live in LA. And so it's kind of unheard of, and I admit it, as an American, it would be kind of unheard of me to just like think of a Mexican visiting and not like staying. My ex-girlfriend here was Mexican, and so so now my perspective has changed about Mexico because I'm in France, right? And so and I've met like a cousin of hers who came to visit and then went back to Mexico and so on. So I now see like Mexico as like a real country that people would choose to live in. But before, I, like Kimmel, didn't, and I think that is the only way to interpret that sort of hesitation. It's like there was something was not computing. On the one hand, You're saying you're from Mexico. Heard that before. I matched that with people who are now living here and maybe don't speak English and maybe don't have documentation. And he had to like take a second to go, oh, like you live there. Like you still live there. But you're, and like the brain was going, huh? But you're in LA and what, you're not gonna like stay here? You're not gonna become like a dishwasher? See, that's like a really subtle thing that, of course, Kim was not going to be held accountable for. I don't know whether he needs to be held accountable. I think it would be worthwhile to say, hey, you know what I realized? I was like surprised when 2 guys told me they were from Mexico and like they lived there. And I realized that's really shitty of me. And that might be true for a lot of us Americans because we're so used to think of Mexicans in terms of coming and living here and then some people having a problem with that. So we stop thinking of Mexico as like a proper country where anybody would choose to live, and it becomes just like being outside, and then a lot of people are like trying to get inside into the shelter and stuff. And you know, he could have, rather than talking about Adidas and all the horrible, terrible things that Kanye said, he could have so yeah, watch. Or should I just combine these videos? No, because I do want to post this. So what are the 3 subjects that we've covered? Briefly, Kanye. French people don't introduce it. Or what should I put for the title? We'll see. Sorry, so I just had to add this. If you don't, oh, that's nice. If you don't watch these little Kimmel Street interactions that he does or whatever, I usually skip over them, but I have watched some of them. If you don't watch them, then let me fill you in, is that sometimes it feels like a person from Sweden or from Australia or something, you know, who asks them where they're from, or, you know, whoever it is, and the person will say Sweden, and then that's it. Or he might say, oh, well, welcome to the US, which, I don't know, might be meaningful, that's what he might instead say. But what's interesting, and another way to sort of put it, is he wouldn't really care what their return date is, what their billing address is. It's just like to make conversation, to quickly put the person in a category, just like harmless human introductions. An identifier, so a name, and then I need to know like what team you're on. Okay, or, you know, whatever, however you want to look at it. It's just a quick, what's your name, where are you from? But here, he had this instinct, and not that he needed to specify he's not racist and blah, 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 but, I mean, he is, as much as any of us are, but is. But it's like, I mean, and you could really make a case that was like a really outlandish thing, right? I could be much less sympathetic, much less forgiving, and I could and also be much less truthful and much less fair and much less reasonable. And I could say, oh wow, he just had to know, are they going to go back to their country because they don't belong here? And normally he would say, oh, well, welcome to the US, you know, what do you think of it so far or something? But he was more concerned about making sure that they don't reside here and so on. It's not true that that's what was happening. But you could do that. And it's so funny that he's spending all this time in his monologues talking about fucking Kanye threatening, and he didn't even say DEFCON 1. And that's it. And I know people confuse the scale. I think the true scale is DEFCON 1 is the highest level of urgency or threat. And that's another funny thing. Didn't even say, whichever it is, whether it's 1 or 5, didn't even say that. He said DEFCON 3. DEFCON 3, bro. And he wants to talk about that. Threatening about a DEFCON 3. Of course, yeah. No, it's not even great at DEFCON 4. Probably should just keep Jews out of your mouth. Probably should keep a lot of people out of your mouth. But rather than analyzing this interaction he had with these 2 young Mexican gentlemen who were tourists, just keeps talking about and implying that Kanye is a supporter of concentration camps, right? Because that's how it gets mutated, right? You can, by commending Hitler's And, you know, and I always found it so stupid when I was in, like, middle school. And somebody would say, and they would say, you know, Hitler was actually a really good leader. And they would, like, say it in a way that they would be like, this is so edgy, and this is about to blow your mind. You're about to say, no, he's not a good leader, blah, blah, blah. But actually, then I'm going to, like, explain to you, think about it this way. Think about it in a leadership way. He did this, that, and the other. He had this effect, whatever. And I'm just like, bro, you're like, that's not edgy, bro. Like, this, like, why would anybody, unless there's a fact, like, why would anybody be offended? Because I never understood it. Why would anybody be offended by saying, I mean, I think it's not factual. I think that I think Stalin may have been a really, really great leader, very successful leader. I think Hitler is kind of a fool, but I don't really know. But so the only problem with this is it's not like, but that's how the brain works. When I was explaining, oh shit! So do I have to just make all of these one video? Okay. When I was explaining that the brain, it doesn't like think of information and then follow it to its conclusion. It doesn't like have a question, think of what information might be relevant, and then follow its conclusion. Instead, there's a question and then there's an answer. And then when we need to explain it or make sure that, you know, whatever, we'll say words that sound like evidence, but usually it's circular. We're begging the question, whatever, and it's absolute nonsense or equivocation or using a word completely differently. As though you're using it in the same way. And so that's kind of what happens. It's like we hear, like this, I guess supposedly, and this is why a lot of people on TV don't like say Hitler was a very successful leader or whoever. We do not, I mean, that was another thing. Trump, he made some comments about, maybe it was Kim Jong, who's the guy now? Kim Jong-un? No, Kim Jong-il? Yeah, Kim Jong-il. Or he made some comments about some dictator or something. And because and just by associating or giving them any sort of positive quality, we found this unacceptable. Because these are rotten, terrible people who can't have any good qualities. You probably, if you called someone handsome, oh, absolutely, right? If anyone ever called Hitler handsome, it would be like, what the fuck? Hitler wasn't particularly handsome, and also his mustache isn't in style. I don't know whether he was particularly handsome, but his mustache isn't in style. So anyway, it looks like a fool, and also there's so much disgust attached to it. And of course, also, yes, okay. If someone was like, I'm sexually attracted to Hitler, okay, there's a problem. Because sexual attraction involves a lot more than just facial symmetry or whatever. But if someone said, hey, actually, Hitler is a very handsome guy. If Trump said that, Kimmel would be mocking him. Because what happens is you've got Hitler, very, very bad. Handsome, good. Ooh. Conclusion, wrong. And then now, why do we need to just, and then, so now you have your conclusion. That is false. Or if you, like, Hitler was an evil person. Right, no, I'm trying to like think of an actual argument, or I'm trying to think, but that's not how it happens in the brain. You got the conclusion. That statement is false, that Hitler is handsome, or this person is bad for having paired these two things. A good quality with this terrible person. They are bad for having done this thing, for having paired them. Which is, reasonably, it's crazy, right? Hitler could have been a wonderful father. He could have been a very good checkers player. He could have been a wonderful, graceful dancer. All these things can be true, and he's still someone that I can fantasize about torturing. But the human brain, nuance, subtlety. But if we were interested in nuance and subtlety, I think Kimmel should sort of apologize for having had an attitude that might lead to him being a little bit confused that someone lives in Mexico. Who watched all of this? And should I make more of an effort to split them up?
No, Jimmy, these two don't seem to be fans. This could be a waste of time. I'm not. Well, come on in. All right.
Oh, my goodness. Now, you guys know about the movie, right?
I don't think we do.
We're kind of crazy about it.
Hey, what are your names, first of all?
Hi, my name is Carlos.
I'm Andres, and we both are from Mexico.
You're from Mexico. You live in Mexico.
Yes.
You came here for the premiere specifically.
Yes, we did.
You did.
Of course, representing Mexico.
Do you want to see a sneak peek of the movie?
Of course.
All right. Well, Cousin Sal, you lead them in there. I'm getting a sneak peek of your testicles.
The rapper is facing intense scrutiny over weeks of offensive and anti-Semitic comments and social media posts. Those comments got him locked out of his Twitter and Instagram accounts, and it also prompted a slew of companies to cut ties with him. Earlier this week, Kim Christensen talked to Scott Levin, the regional director of Colorado's Anti-Defamation League, about the comments and the impact that they've had on the Jewish community.
So disturbing.
So disappointing, the normalization of anti-Semitism. For some reason, Jew hatred seems to not draw the same kind of ire or disapproval that so many other forms of hatred do.
Shocking.
Our office is being contacted on a near daily basis, not just for anti-Semitism, but also racism, homophobia, anti-trans, everything. This celebrity who opens his mouth, and when you say things like DEFCON 3 to the Jews, or you rely on old stereotypes and tropes, these are the kind of things that led to the attacks on synagogues in Pittsburgh and Poway. It was because of the trope believing that Jews somehow controlled the world.
It's so upsetting and upsetting.
Kanye has something like 31.5 million Twitter followers. That's more than twice the amount of Jews in the entire world. Ugly things are spread.
It really only takes one person to really start believing this and doing something, a serious act.
Adidas is about to release a new shoe that's designed by Ye's company, and they're doing it on the anniversary of the shooting in Pittsburgh. It's just disgusting, despicable kind of conduct. In America, we know the First Amendment lets people say terrible, ugly things.
Today he posted Ari Emanuel. Ari Emanuel is a very powerful agent in Hollywood. He wrote an op-ed asking others to boycott Kanye. Powerful agent in Hollywood. He wrote an op-ed asking others to boycott Kanye. Wrote an op-ed asking others to boycott. He wrote, I lost $2 billion in one day and I'm still alive. This is love speech. I still love you. God still loves you. The money is not who I am. The people is who I am. A business executive who worked closely with Kanye says Kanye was a big fan and admirer of. Any guesses as to who? Anyone say Hitler? Yes, it was Hitler. That's right. This person says Kanye even wanted to name an album after Hitler, which that would be something. Downloaded the new Hitler. It's tight. I have to say,